I'm Lex Thomas, and I am so delighted to be here today with one of our real local treasures. I'd like to introduce you to those of you who don't know him to Ray Tatten. And Ray is a local writer. And by local, I mean he resides in Sterling. This is his area, but his writing is, of course, appeals to people really throughout the region and even beyond. And a large part of why that is because he writes about so much of the history that is so pertinent to this. So, Ray, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is something I've been looking forward to.
Well, I am too. And the reason, too, that we're doing this is because this is a very important time for you. Why is that? You have a brand new publication, right?
I do. I've been working on a few things, and the one that devoted a lot of attention to was Sawyer's Regret, which you have the copy there. And that is a story that is something that happened right here locally in 1705. If you don't know the story, there were three people kidnapped from Lancaster and removed to Canada by, I'll call them Indians. We don't like to call Indians anymore, but they called them Indians back then. And they had an adventure in Canada, and in particular the boy, who was Elias, who was 16. And the legend is, and there's facts to support it, that he fell in love while he was in Canada with a Indian maiden who was a special girl in herself, and that romance had a lot to do with the story that I wanted to tell. So I've been asked many times, why did you write that? And the answer is, I've always liked history. In particular, the history of the Native Americans,
right,
which I first heard about when I worked at Fruitlands Museum as a high school kid. That goes back to the 60s. But everybody knows the stories of, Thomas Jefferson and the Revolution and all that. But some of these other stories are buried in the local lore, and I thought it warranted telling.
Now, how do you dig those things out? How do you tease them out? Because, as you say, we all know the big stories that are kind of on a more of a national level. How do you tease something like this out? How did you find out about this?
Well, I didn't discover it. It's in the history, the local history of Lancaster. People know that they captured, like Mary Rowlandson and a lot of the other events that happened. So this was sort of a well-known event, but I don't think it ever really got the attention that, like a Mary Rowlandson story, is, exciting in its own right. But I think this is more so for a lot of reasons that hopefully we'll have some time to go into. But how do I tease it out? I have been in the habit of stopping and reading the plaques when I'm driving around. I have a chance. And this one particular monument looks like a gravestone. It's tilted in a little meadow just off Route 62 over by the Clinton line. And I drove by it 100 times or more. And I finally stopped one day and read it. And it said, on this spot in 1705, Thomas Sawyer, who was the son of one of the first settlers, Thomas Sawyer, his son Elias, and John Bigelow from Marlborough were captured, taken by Indians to Canada, et cetera, and it went on. I don't want to spoil the story. And so I remember reading that and looking around at the meadow, trying to envision, I wonder how it happened. I wonder when they got them. Was it dawn? Probably dawn. I was imagining, and then the other thing I was thinking of, I wonder how old the son was. Didn't say, and I had heard the legend that, he had gone there and fallen in love and all that, so I figured, well, he couldn't have been 13, 14.
Right.
And if he was 18, 19, he would have already probably been married. So I'll make him 16. And I grew up on a farm, riding horses my whole life, and had a little feeling of I was a little bit of an Indian. I always related to the tribes out west. And I started thinking, what could it have been like to be 16 years old, and be living with Native people for 2 years? He spent 2 years in Canada. What was that could have been like? That must have been an adventure. Once they get past the fear and the uncertainty, that was probably, in my mind, an adventure. which is supported by, I started digging into it, I wanted to know, the other thing I wanted to know, Lex, was why, the King Philip War, which by now everyone's pretty much familiar with, that had been over for a generation, 31 years. Why were people coming all the way from Canada to capture these two men? What was going on in the world? I wanted to know that. I wanted some context. So I started digging into that.
Right.
Because the history was there. They got captured. They went there. They did some things. They came back. So I had all that. It's like I use the analogy, you know the Titanic sank, but then you make a story around it. So I had the facts, and I said, well, I want to tell the story from Elias's point of view, what he experienced, what that might have been like. So I need a lot of information to do that. So I started digging.
Yeah, so it's just your natural curiosity, too,
Yeah.
just really contributes to this. Now, we're going to come back to Sawyer's Regret, but this is not your first publication. Where is this in the line of what you've already done?
That is not the last, I don't want to say last, but it's the one that I just finished. That's the fourth book.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've got three others.
Yeah.
They're all self-published, and I began with a book of essays, just kind of as a lark to see, if I could do it. I had learned how to do self-publishing, went to a course, and
Right.
I was thinking doesn't sound too difficult. I'll never get these essays published. Some of them had been published by locals and different literary, but I'll never get an agent and get a book. I'll just put them together. Then I won't lose them. My progeny will have them.
Sure.
That was really part of the impetus to do that.
Yep.
And it was so much fun, and it came, and people have commented, I really like the one, I read your book. I really like the one about such and such, everybody has a different favorite. And I was so buoyed by that.
Yeah.
I said,
and
this is fun.
you just have a marvelous way of telling a story. How about you read us a little bit of something?
Okay.
Just whatever. So you've got your copies of your books as well. Just give us a little bit of a flavor of your style.
I did prepare a little bit, and I like to talk about this because when I started writing in your class, we went there for a book critique.
I remember that.
And you surprised the group. There was about 6 or 8 of us there. You said, let's start our own story. And you passed out blank paper, and everybody started writing like crazy, paragraphs. And I wanted to run. I had nothing. So I thought I got to do something. And so I wrote 10 minutes, and I came up with 3 sentences. And they had arrows and circles, and that goes there, and that's a cross out. It was a mess. But I read it, and those 3 sentences, the group, you said, wow, that was good. And the lady next to me said, wow. She goes, keep writing. I want to hear what happens.
Right.
And so that's what started me on this whole writing adventure that night. So these are the 3, there's actually 4 or 5 sentences now, but they turned into this book, which what it is episodes of my certain time in my childhood, it's like 9-year-old boy.
Right.
And this relates to that. So I'll read those first 3 sentences.
That sounds great.
I scuffed my boots across the gravel yard, hoping the day had made everything all right. The barn door was open the quarter way it always was. It never closed all the way. I pushed, letting what was left of late afternoon sunshine spill in over my shoulders, awakening the barn's insides. Tex? The sudden sunlight stirred the flies to scatter through the sunbeams, crisscrossing, looking for stillness. My eyes struggled with the light, but I heard the whinny and caught the form in the shadow. Tex tried to rise, but slumped back to the floor, his head slapping the dirt with a dull thud. He had been waiting. So that, then I started thinking, geez, I ought to tell about that. Or maybe I kept writing and making little notes, and I had papers all over the house before long. And so after many years in critique groups and learning how to write more effectively,
You came up
That
with that.
happened.
Now, one of the things that I've always admired about your writing, Ray, is you are really able to evoke a picture. It's there's, of course, and every writer knows this, the whole concept of, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Make me visualize it. And you are so able to do that. And that's a marvelous thing to do. Now, you referenced writing classes and
Right.
critique groups.
Right.
Tell me where that has played into this. So
Right.
you obviously go to those sorts of things
Right.
and you attend them. You're not just there. Of course, so much
No.
of your writing is, of course, solitary because that's what writers do. But tell me how that has worked into this.
Well, without the writing groups, I wouldn't be doing this. Frankly, when I came home that night, what I just described, that I told my wife, and she was like, "Wow, that's really good." And the next thing I know, she had cut out a little snippet from the paper of a Fitchburg Art Museum course, a weekend course on writing. I took that, and I just thought, this is great. So. Then my wife again spotted Seven Bridge Writers Collaborative at Thayer Memorial Library in Lancaster. And there's a number of critique groups. They meet weekly. And I landed in one with Winona Wentz is her name. She teaches at Quincy. And I've been going there 7 years. And without that, I never would have continued writing. There's no question about it. So the way that this particular class works, she would send out a prompt maybe on a Sunday night, and you have several days. Like a prompt could be anything. Right. Like a prompt that's a prompt, a sentence, and you just go with it, and everybody writes whatever they want. Then you bring it in and you read it. And Winona is one of many of the facilitators, and she would critique it, and the other people would say, I didn't really like that part, but I like that part. Or that word, why'd you pick that word? So it really granular critique, and it helped me, and it kept me, it could be like Wednesday, I have to write something for tomorrow night, and it would make me write something. Otherwise, I would never do it.
Well, and I remember from things like that I've attended with you, and that we've done together, those sorts of critique groups and whatnot. It's something that you eventually just really start to look forward to and count on, because you're going to be not only able to get something back on your work, but you're also going to be able to hear what other people are doing. And the thing, too, that I always tell people when I'm critiquing is, you take out of this what you can use. Probably 99% of the comments you're not going to incorporate, but maybe there's that little bit of something. And then, that helps you to develop this.
Yep. I remember, and sometimes I'll be writing something now, and I'll hear Winona.
Right.
Too much run-up. Get to the point.
Yes.
Things like that. It sticks with you. And when you hear someone else that maybe is just getting started, and you hear what they're doing, and you say, what could be better. So when you're listening to others, you learn too. And the other people telling you that they didn't like that, or not they didn't like it, but you didn't accomplish what you wanted with that piece. And so what do you mean? I thought that was pretty good. And people are like, well, it wasn't that good. So,
and then, and really that's so helpful, because otherwise, and I have this expression that I never want to feel married to my words. It's like, it's got to be an organic thing. You've got to be able to be flexible. Now, when we were talking about doing this interview, you told me a very funny story about some writing that you had done while waiting for a movie. Because here again, I think people just always think of this very intense writer at your desk and whatnot, but this happens anywhere. Just tell me about that again.
That was kind of you touched on it before. So you get in the habit of thinking about pieces, because I have to have something ready for Thursday. So you get in that when something happens to you, you say, well, that would be a good piece. You'd be I used to do a lot of driving. I'd be driving along, and I'd have pieces working in my mind. So this particular night, we went over to Solomon Pond Mall, and it was early to beat the rush. Got our tickets, went in the mall. And so Linda and my daughter were going to walk around. I said, I'll just sit here. And there was a nice big couch there. So I sat there, and you know how you're just kind of vegging out and just watching people. And I'm watching the people go by, and I'm thinking, about the mall, the way my mind was working, the mall, and probably not going to have a mall, forever. These things are going away. We never had a mall when I was a kid, and that's the way my mind was working. I started thinking about when I was growing up. And, those ideas, I say they pestered me. And what I mean by that is I had no intent to write that piece, but those ideas kept pestering me, and I kept bouncing them around. Well, I should that would be a good opening, or that would be a good. And then before I know it, I'm sitting down, packing it out on the computer, and I put together a piece which I very much liked. So that was the way that one came about. And others have happened that way, not just because I needed a piece.
Sure. Yes, exactly.
Right.
And I know that there are things that I do all the time. Of course, we've always got our phones with us, so, you can write down a note. I'm a great one for having a notebook, just a small one in my bag at all times, and I can just scribble something down, even beside me when I'm asleep at night. Because sometimes you just...
That's a good idea.
Sometimes I think I've come up with something that's brilliant, and of course I wake up and I can't remember it, and I think, oh my goodness.
That's very common.
Yes, and you think, my goodness, this would have been the great American novel here. It just slipped away. Know. Now, you've got a reading coming up, so tell us about that.
I'm going to the Sterling Library, it's going to be more than a reading. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some reading from the book, and once again, I don't want to spoil the story, so I want to just pick some small pieces, maybe the introduction, and then I want to talk. The last time I did this book when I first wrote it, and I had a lot of people come that I remember one lady in particular. She brought her father, who was in his 70s. He wanted to write his memoirs, and she wanted him to learn how to make how to self-publish. So a lot of the talk was about the process of self-publishing.
Right.
How it works, how easy it is to do, how everyone can do it. And you don't have to chase a publisher. You can get your ideas down, and if you do a good job with it, you can put it out there. Right. And that's what my point is. A lot of people, there's millions of people doing self-publishing now, as I'm sure you're aware of, but people are hungry to put themselves out there.
Right.
And there's a great revolution, if you will, going on, that people like me can do it. I tried for years to get an agent or someone. I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
So finally, all that energy I put into it, the whole industry changed in those 10 years. I mean, I used to send a letter with a self-addressed stamped envelope to a publisher, and a month later, I never got anything back. Now it's all, you can't even go to a publisher. You have to go find an agent, and they go to a publisher. So the whole thing is all different.
Has all completely changed.
And then add the self-publishing to it, and there's a lot of reasons why it's better to self-publish, because number one, you maintain control of the work.
Sure.
So there's a lot to it. And so my point is, at the talk, I'm going to be talking about what prompted me to do these particular 4 books, and what was a little different about each one, and how I stumbled my way through self-publishing.
And your that reading is going to be on Thursday, December 2nd.
December 2nd, right.
Yes. What time is that?
6:30.
Yeah. Now, I see that you have another thing here, just saying, which was your very first publication, I believe. Anything that you can just read from that? Just give us a little snippet of that.
I will read. This is the first piece I ever got published. And I mentioned I was sending things out. I was trying to get some interested in a manuscript, and I wasn't getting too far. So I was thinking, who would be interested in these stories?
Right.
And I grew up on a farm at the Harvard-Bolton line before 495 came through. It was just woods. It was a pig farm, my father's pig farm. And so I was thinking, who would be interested in my stories? I think they're pretty interesting. And I said, well, the people in Bolton might. So I stopped and picked up the Bolton Independent.
Right.
And I took it home and I read, and I had a 300, 400-word essay, and it said 150, take a 150-word submission. So I stripped something down, and I sent it. It was 9 o'clock at night. I was watching a football game. And 15 minutes later, I got an email back. and it was from the editor, Carolyn, and it said, "I really enjoyed your piece. We're going to publish it Thursday."
Oh, marvelous. It's like your firstborn.
That was it.
Yes. You were
And
hooked.
I couldn't wait for Thursday.
Of course. So this is a snippet from that?
Yeah, I'll just read
Sure.
the beginning. It's called Before. Interstate 495 is 121 miles of pavement connecting the bottom of Massachusetts with the New Hampshire border. Round the clock, hurried drivers weave around and between each other before sliding off exit ramps to homes, shopping, and work. But the road was not always there, and I remember that. And then it goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
How has the writing process changed for you from the time that you first started writing to where you're at now? Does it come any more easily? Do you do things any differently?
I don't. I still don't have the urge to sit down to write unless I have to. With the exception, I very much wanted to do this book.
Right.
I really, it sounds kind of hokey, but I really felt compelled to do it. I wanted to get that out for some reason. And so if I didn't have that, once that's done, I don't have any compulsion right now to write anything. People ask, "What's your next book?" My wife is like, "What's your next book?" And I'm like, I have some ideas, but I don't feel like writing that much. Matter of fact, I signed up for another course this fall, and I really haven't put the emphasis into it that I've done in the past. I just feel like I'm not feeling like I'm doing a lot of writing right now.
One of the things that I find, and I'd be interested to see if you feel the same, is that once I've finished a major project, I'm just exhausted. I just feel tapped out. And it takes a while to get that energy back. And I've just learned over the years to go with that because it eventually does come back. But you can't force it. Does that happen to you?
That totally makes sense because a lot of what happened in writing this book in particular, I think I probably read that about 50 times, and every time I read the manuscript, I find something I wanted to change, make better, mistakes, whatever.
Yes.
So you're absolutely right. That kind of focus was really exhausting now that I look at it.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to buffer the feeling of I just want to get this done with the feeling I want it to be as good as I can make it.
Right.
So I feel like, I feel really good about it. And I just want to just kind of savor that for the time being. And then, now that I know that I can do it and I enjoy doing it, I'm going to do more of it.
Right.
But like you said, I just want to be ready for the next. I have a couple of ideas I'm fiddling with now.
And also, you just need to let things percolate, I find,
That's
too.
a good word.
Because you're always thinking.
Yeah.
Always thinking about something. Even if it's not at the front of your mind, then, something that you're doing in your day or something that you see will trigger that. And you think, oh, that would be really good for this, Ray, where can people get your material?
Well, they're all up on Amazon, and then I also had some friends in the past say, "Can you sign it?" And a couple of friends live in Georgia, so I made on my website people can order it there, and then I'll get it from Amazon, sign it, and ship it. Can do that, or you can send me an email. Or also they're available at Root & Press in
Worcester.
The bookstore in Worcester.
Yeah,
right.
Wonderful shop.
Nice little cafe there, and they have all the latest books and all that, so you can get it there.
Sure, absolutely. Now, how about giving us a little bit of the flavor of Sawyer's Regret?
Okay.
What would you like to read from that?
Well, I kind of wondered about that. What I'd like to emphasize in this is in my research, I really wanted to convey the idea of how similar back in 1705 culture clashes is to what's going on today with racism, the way we consider each other. And part of wondering what Elias' experience was what was going on in Canada. You know, I felt like it was a different planet. I didn't know anything about Canada. What was going on then, as opposed to what was going on in the Mass Bay community? And it was quite a different experience. So I was wondering, how in my book can I convey that? And there's certain information that the reader's going to have to get. How do I get that to them? How do I, paint that environment? So I came up with a lot of different characters along the way in the book, and one in particular I'm particularly fond of. And his name is Maurice, or Morris, however you want to pronounce it. And they are being taken to Canada, and they've traveled well over a month. It was this time of year, and one evening, just before dark, they hear a voice in the woods, and it's this Maurice, and he's a trapper, and he shows up. A bearded man emerged, loud and happy-sounding, showing neither fear nor shyness, announcing himself with confident bluster. He was white, with hair long past his shoulders, hanging from under a beaver-skin cap. His mouth was hidden, buried under his bushy brown beard. "Bonjour, you English, comment ça va?" "Yes," replied Thomas. "You're French, I see." "Oui, monsieur, more Indian, though. Je m'appelle Maurice Pierre Montange, trader extraordinaire. Mother is Mohawk. My grandmother, she is Talise, Iroquois from near the Great Lake." The newcomer appeared to wait for the Englishman to absorb what he had just told them. "So, my friends, let me see, can you say exactly what I may be?" "No, I am the mix, just like most of our people. Je suis part of, qu'est-ce que c'est, la grande soupe." He laughed again, bigger this time. "This is la New France. Je suis cassé la banquet." He laughed again, bigger. "La grande casserole." So I was trying to convey that the French culture, they integrated with the native people.
Yes.
They intermarried, they got along, they supported each other, they needed each other. As opposed to our heritage here in Mass Bay, English, we just wanted to get them the hell out of here.
Right. Yes.
And so it was. I wanted to get that across.
Yes.
And if you look at the world today with refugees and getting pushed out of one area and what they're going through, it's very similar. And people, people are on the news all the time. They don't like that person because they're that and whatever. And we're still fighting with the whole, the whole cultural thing. So I was trying to get, it was an adventure, but I wanted to explore that a lot.
Right.
Try to get that out there.
And back to, what the French say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more it changes, the more it's the same, and that you think over even these centuries that you can still make those parallels, Ray, it's been absolutely delightful chatting with you.
It's been fun.
I always enjoy
you.
chatting with you, writer to writer. And this is absolutely so marvelous. Congratulations on this. I mean, what you have, and you've said, it's easy, anybody can, and well, no, the self-publishing, it really does take application, and you've put the effort into it, and you've come up with some wonderful things. I have enjoyed every single word that you have written, and thank you so much for these that you signed to me. So I really do appreciate that. So once again, your reading and your presentation, Thursday, December 2nd at the Conant Public Library here in Sterling on Main Street. And it's at 6:30. And I will certainly be there. And I know that your events tend to be very, very well attended because, people are really getting to know you. As I said at the very beginning of this, you are really one of our local treasures. And it's a pleasure to know you and to speak with you. And all the best at your reading.
Well, speaking of treasures, you're a treasure, too, for the community. I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, I appreciate that, Ray. Thank you so much for watching and hope to see you all at the library on December 2nd.